Brandi wrote a book. Tune into this episode to learn about Brandi's book, Real Flow, Break the Burnout Cycle and Unlock High Performance in the New World of Work. Take a listen.
Well, lady, I am so excited to tell everybody and excited for you that you wrote a book. How
I
awesome is
did.
that? Because, I'm kind of trying to do that. And to see you have something out there in the world and sharing your knowledge. Oh my gosh, congratulations. What is the title of your book?
Thank you. Okay, can I share it? Okay,
Absolutely.
So here's my book. Oh, I don't have my camera set up. You're reading it backwards.
No, I can see it the right way. So it's looking right for us.
My book is called Real Flow, Break the Burnout Cycle and Unlock High Performance in the New World of Work. And it was released in October. And is super exciting because it was not an easy process to get there. And you do all this work and then you put it out in the world. And as an introvert, it's like, probably nobody will read it, right? But people have been reading it. It was a #1 new bestseller for the month that it launched. And I've been hearing from people all over the world. And gosh, that feels great. I am excited and I'm happy to celebrate.
Good. And so when you go to these events, these conferences, you have like a big bag full of your books, right? Like that's your new business.
I don't know. I haven't yet. I've done a lot of virtual stuff thus far. I know I'm funny because I'm like, I want to hand books out to everybody. And my publishing team is like, you shouldn't actually just give all of your books away for free. But I'm like, but I kind of would like, I just want to give them to everybody because I'm so excited.
Well, that's exciting. You and I will have to talk about that. I've got an event coming up, and at my last event, I purchased some books from folks, and people loved it. So let's have some coffee.
Makes a great gift.
Yes,
I know a number of people who gifted the book to their entire teams at Christmas because it really is a book about how do we deal with those real challenges around an abundance of important work to do and the flood that comes from just competing priorities and what I call organizational multitasking, pursuing too many things at the same time. And how does that impact our well-being and our experience of burnout? And then the real piece and why I put burnout and high performance in the same sentence is we too often look at well-being and high performance as opposite ends of the spectrum, that we have to choose one over the other. And the book comes out of my years of work with organizations who struggled with that and found ways to recognize that sustainable high performance is only possible through high employee well-being. And is possible when we design organizations that don't cause people to burn out. And the cost of that constant burnout cycle is devastating. So it was a book written about that and a path forward, some different ways to look at those really common and pernicious challenges that many organizations experience.
And it's so timely. I mean, with everything that's happened in the last couple of years, global pandemic, new administration, student loans, all those things are just compounding. And then it's like, I need this report. And I'm like, I'm just trying to deal with life. Yep. And, you do feel like with this battle of being on site versus working remotely, are you giving up the opportunity to be considered a high performer if you're working remotely? Because you want to have those boundaries. And also, I just don't want to commute anymore. Right. And I can see you right here on camera, right? And there's a lot to it. So it sounds like this is a book that everybody, I'm going to get it soon and put it in my my list of books. But
put it in your queue. There's pictures in it.
So oh my God,
I wrote it with using my strong user experience and product mindset. I wrote it with my user and reader in mind, who is a high performer who's got a lot of work to do. So it is highly skimmable. There's pictures, and I wanted it to feel like a book you could pick up and get something out of it wherever your eyes landed in the book, right? It is not everything I know about how to design high performing companies. It's not everything I know or you need about leadership, but it will make every problem that you're trying to solve a little bit easier, because it is always easier to solve problems when we're not just stuck in the flood of competing priorities. and overwhelmed. So it's a super easy read for that very reason.
That's great to hear. Well, you've given, you answered a question that was in my head, like, why should you read it? I mean, it's, you want to be a high performer, but you also don't want to have that burnout. And you can get both, but it definitely with an eye towards making sure that we're addressing some of the burnout challenges that we have. So
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say about the book? A little plug, or why should a leader buy this book? If they're dealing with some type of challenge, this is a good reason to buy this book for your teams.
Yeah, I would say it's a good reason to buy the book if you are a leader, because it is written to leaders to say because burnout is something that we experience individually. So we often talk about it as an individual problem, but it really is an organizational problem, and it's an ecosystem problem. And if you're a leader of an organization that is flooded with an abundance of important work to do, you are probably also experiencing some level of overwork and burnout yourself. And we need to be able to look at these challenges from a different lens and have really pragmatic tools to do things differently that don't require us to stop everything and somehow figure out the master plan, or that don't require us to lower our expectations. And so if you're struggling with that, if you know that you really care about people and you care about the people that are on your team and that you're leading, and also you have an abundance of important work to do, this is the book for you. If you don't care about the people that you lead, you won't find much value in this book. I'm not trying to convince anybody that people matter. But if you're struggling with that dilemma and you think that there's got to be a better way, but you keep kind of running up against the same things over and over again, I'd love you to read Real Flow. Let me know what you think about it, because this is the book for you.
That's great. And would you say, there's no wrong answer to this one, would you see value in someone who might be transitioning, especially when we hear about all these layoffs and people are now looking for their next company, and this is also a reality check. You know what? I am not going to go back to that same grind. Is this a good book for them to pick up so that they have some questions to ask during the interview to get a sense of what this potential employer, what their take is on preventing or minimizing burnout? Would you say this is a good book for that?
Yeah, it wasn't the use case I was imagining, but I actually just had somebody reach out to me last week, and they said almost exactly what you just described.
Oh, wow.
They're looking and transitioning to a new job. They just got hired. And they said that the book gave them some language and framework to bring to the interview and to have a conversation that helped them understand how that potential employer was thinking about how they prioritize their work and the organizational system that they have. But it also gave them some really pragmatic tools and language to talk about what they would do, how they would start that new job, how they would integrate into the work that's already happening, but how they could add value in helping to improve decision-making and flow of work and prioritization. So I think it gives, sometimes we struggle with these challenges because they are repetitive and they happen over and over again, and we just lack the right language or stories to help bring us together and realize that we need to have a different conversation. And so that's a big part of what I did as I was writing the book. Lots and lots of stories and a lot of really pragmatic tools, things that you can use right now today to impact how you personally deal with overwork or an abundance of competing priorities, and then how you might start to influence change in your teams.
That's cool. I like that. So I was so excited to have you because about your book, I'm also in the process of writing a book, and I'm curious, did you use project management skills to help you with writing your book? Or did you do it in a sprint format? Was it just like, I'm just going to write something?
Well, I tried it all.
I'm asking for a friend.
I tried it all. And what I would say is it's so important to figure out what works for you, what ultimately worked for me. So I started writing the book pre-pandemic, but like early 2020. So I'd been doing lots of research and kind of gathering my notes, and I went on a writing retreat. And I thought, I'm going to go on a writing retreat and I'm going to get a bunch done. And then I'd actually blocked out a few months of workspace where I didn't have a lot of client work. So I thought, and then I'm going to come back and I'm just going to work on it, focus, follow my own principles about managing work in progress and creating a lot of focus. And that was my plan. And then, of course, I came back from my writing retreat in March. And within a week, my kids' school was closed. And we can all remember what 2020 might have been like. And I sure didn't get a lot of writing done. And one of the things that I realized along the way was I'd been told a lot that like you need to have a writing habit and you need to write a little bit every day and just like block that time on your calendar. So I did. I had that time blocked on my calendar, but I found that only writing for an hour or two every day, it took me so long to like get my head into the work that by the time I did that, my time was up and it was time to move on to something else. And so I wasn't really making progress. So ultimately what I did that worked well for me was I used a Kanban board. So a Kanban board is a simple flow board that just tracks to do and progress and done. And I broke my book out into, my chapters. I mean, it started with like my outline, and then each of my chapters and the phases of editing for that. And I just worked chapter at a time. And the thing that made the biggest difference for me was doing writing sprints. So rather than trying to make progress every day, I actually about once a month, every 4 to 6 weeks, took a long weekend and went away if I was able to write. And so my family had to be on board with that because that was sacrifice from them too. But that's what I needed to like really get the writing done, was I needed those extended periods of time. So I wasn't making progress every day. I'd come back from my writing sprint and I'd set it down and I'd just wait till the next one and not feel guilty about not making progress in between. So that's how I got the book written eventually with, starts and stops along the way. But it was really important to me that I understood what my goal was, which wasn't just to write a certain number of words or a certain number of pages or a certain number of hours of writing. It was really to get these chapters done. And then ultimately, right, the real outcome and goal is what would happen after everybody got to read it. But during the writing processes, it was one chapter at a time through writing sprints.
That's really, really great advice. You got me kind of thinking like, I might need to do that. And then the other thing is just for everybody that's listening, isn't it amazing how we just have to be out of our usual space to like concentrate? Because it's so, and that's where I've been working remote for a long time, but it's just different now now my teaching is virtual, which is great. I don't have to worry about the commute. But when it's time for me to kind of do content development, I'm like, it's time to do laundry. And I hate doing laundry. Like, I'll just find a reason, like, I'm going to vacuum. I hate vacuuming. Like, it's just amazing. And you just have to get out of that space. And I don't know if it's just, I call it mind trash. Maybe it's imposter syndrome. I don't know. But it's just like, I feel like this paralysis or these distractors. And it's just amazing. And I think for, that does, if you don't kind of remove yourself from sometimes the situations that are going to get in the way, that also can lead to burnout. Because I have sometimes like, I don't want to do this. This is a terrible idea. Like, why did I agree to this?
Or you just build like the cognitive load just gets heavier. So for me, what was so helpful finally when I kind of figured out what worked was the ability to like get done what I could get done in my writing sprint, which is like 4 days, but really it was like 2 full days and a half day on either end to like unwind and kind of wrap up. And then the freedom that I gave myself to say, and I do not have any expectation of getting more done between now and the next time I go writing. Because otherwise it's just a constant, like, you could be doing more, you should be doing more. And then we get into that, like that mind game. So I think it's like figuring out what are the circumstances that allow you to have the focus you need, and how much time does it take you to like get into that flow and focus? Because that's the other thing I learned is I just needed a couple hours where I could work through that mind clutter to get into like a state of focus. And then I needed a day and a half when I was in that flow. And so figuring those things out and experimenting with it, I think is key. And then finding what works for you and then, working it and having lots of grace along the way. For the process.
I don't know about you, but I'm excited about reading Brandi's book, and it has pictures. It's on my reading list. Why should you read this book? Well, if you're in your current job and want to minimize burnout in your role, you should read this book. Perhaps you're transitioning into a new job and have an interview coming up and need to frame your questions to ensure this next job is a right fit for you. You need to read this book. Stay tuned for the final episode with Brandi.